need to act on. What you act on, you need to have a sort of what I would say, that what you act, you believe. What you believe, you act. So there should be always a coordination between what you think and what you act. And perhaps Gandhi is the best model for that kind of an attitude. Now, 1883, he married. 1885, his father passed away. And 1888 is an important year in Gandhi's life, that he went to England to pursue his law studies. And 1891, he passed the bar examination in London. So 1888 to 1891 is a very important period, because for the first time he was exposed to the Western civilization. For the first time he was exposed to the Western society. For the first time he was exposed to Western way of life. So therefore it was a very important phase in Gandhi's life, because now he was able to understand there is a life other than Indian life, and there is a system of ethos other than the ethos system of India. So that way, 1888 and 1893, 1891 is a very, very important period. He came back, he tried to practice law in Bombay, but he was a miserable failure. He was not a successful lawyer at all. In fact, the first case when he was facing the judge, he couldn't stand. He started feeling that the entire world was revolving. So that was the kind of experience that he made. He had, and he records that, and he says that my heart sunk into my boots. That is the expression Gandhi records about his first experience in the court of law. And then later he was called for by Dada Abdullah Company in South Africa to represent the Indian Muslims issues in South Africa. Or in other simple words, he had an offer from Dada Abdullah Company from South Africa to represent their issues in South African courts. So therefore, he got an assignment to go to South Africa, and that assignment for 1 year. And what he got for 1 year, that he was supposed to stay there for 1 year. Finally, he stayed there for 21 long years. A man who went there for 1 year stayed there for 21 long years, from 1893 to 1914, a very huge period. So now Gandhi, what we see him as a man of action in the Indian context, was trained in the African soil. He did not get this training in the Indian soil. Before coming to India, he was very clear about his philosophy. He was very clear about his mode of action. He was very clear about the core values that he should stand for. So all these things became very, very significantly internalized by Gandhi when he was in South Africa between 1893 and 1914. It was here that he represented the issues of the Indians. What was happening in South Africa at that point in time? Now, the common factor between South Africa and India, that they were ruled by the British Empire. The same empire was ruling both over South Africa and also India. That was the common factor. So essentially, the enemy was the British, whether in the South African context or the Indian context. So a certain British mindset was quite present both in India and also in South Africa. So therefore, what he experienced in South Africa, that helped him to carry forward the political discourse in India. So therefore, the very important thing that This period of 21 years in South Africa made one Gandhi as a man of action, a philosopher, and whatnot. He made Gandhi develop in two different dimensions. Now here, he tried to converse with the Indian labor. What was their main issue? Their main issue was that they were exploited by the British. That was one issue. But the more important issue for the Indians over there was the issue of racial discrimination. Racial discrimination. So this racial discrimination was very, very disturbing point for Gandhi. These British, even in South Africa, they not only discriminated against the Indians, they discriminated against all Asians. Even the people from China who went there for laboring, they were also discriminated against. So this racial discrimination was too central to the Gandhian philosophy to be developed in South Africa. So people had to register their names in the registry, and they had to follow all the instructions given by the government. And there were too many restrictions. They couldn't walk on the footpath. They couldn't, even Indians were not allowed to walk on the footpath. So there were too many issues for the Indians, and even getting a housing itself was a big issue for them. Now, Gandhi himself was the victim of this, kind of, racial discrimination. He was going to Pretoria on the train. In fact, he had a valid ticket of the first class compartment. But in the middle of the journey, he was disturbed and he was thrown out of the train. And that was too bitter an experience. One, he was humiliated, not just insulted, he was humiliated. And secondly, it was a bitter cold. And thirdly, where would he go in that early hours of the next day? Early hours. So he had a saddening, very deep impact of this kind of a racial discrimination, and he was kicked, he was thrown out. Now, any normal person in the place of Gandhi perhaps would have decided to leave the country. This country is not meant for me. I'm not meant for this country. He would have left immediately, and he would have come back to his native place and to feel the social comfort. Gandhi did not do that. Gandhi decided, he had two options, whether to remain there and fight against this discrimination, or to leave the country, come back to India and seek for the future. So this was the two important options for Gandhi. But Gandhi chose the first option, that he wanted to remain there and he wanted to fight against this kind of a discriminatory attitude. So when in one of the court halls, when he was made to, when the magistrate ordered him to remove his turban, he refused to remove this turban. He did not remove. He, as a matter of fact, he protested against this attitude of the magistrate. And in that sense, Gandhi always stood as the original Indian. He never ever allowed other people to take Indians for granted. And this is quite well demonstrated in the kind of experiences that we see in Gandhian about. Secondly, now it was his turn to train people in the political discourse. So he started a paper. It was called Indian Opinion. Look at the the title of the paper, or the nomenclature of the paper, Indian Opinion. So there was something called an opinion. For the British, Indians did not have an opinion. But now Gandhi, for the first time, tried to create a new nomenclature saying that Indian opinion, that means Indians also have an opinion. So he started this paper, and he used to write the editorials and other things, and he made even others to contribute for this paper. So that way, he was not only inventing himself, he was also trying to invent the movement that he was trying to build. He was also trying to motivate people. He was also trying to educate them. in every issue, he was trying to address one issue or the other. And by addressing this issue, Gandhi, was able to, educate the Indians. And he was able to, make people, gain that, internal strength. Any person should have that internal strength. You can't draw strength always from outside. Any strength drawn from outside will not be there for a long time for you. It will not come in your critical times. The strength that you have inside, that is the strength which will make you sustain yourself against any odd. So Gandhi believed his internal strength, and it was this opportunity that he made use of, and he not only changed the course of his life, the future of his life, but also changed the course and future of the people who are living in South Africa. So this made a very impactful news even in the Indian circles. Now, for the first time, Indians started hearing about, there is one person called Mohanchand Karamchand Gandhi, and who is leading the Indian population in South Africa, and against all odds, there were efforts on the part of the government to dislodge the people from their working setups, influencing the people who had given them the jobs. But Gandhi stood all against this, and that is the reason why Gandhi was able to become the kind of leader that he emerged ultimately. So now, another important thing: what are his central philosophical issues? In one word, Gandhi's central philosophy is Swaraj. Swaraj. But Swaraj has different dimensions. Okay. Swaraj is the central or the core idea of Gandhi. Swaraj means self-rule. Now, to understand Swaraj, we need to understand Hind Swaraj by Gandhi. It is a very interesting book. It's a very small book, but there are thousands and thousands of pages that have been written on this small book. Now, to understand Gandhi, one must compulsorily read this Hind Swaraj. I would suggest you all to read Hind Swaraj. Gandhi went to England to represent the issues of the Indians of South Africa, particularly the racial discrimination. It was not that all British were racially oriented, but the political class particularly, they were racially oriented, and they were discriminating against the Indian people in South Africa. And Gandhi wanted to represent that in Britain. He had come down to Britain. And it was during this time